When you stop caring, everything falls into place. Whatever you resist persists. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed how life begins to shift the moment you stop forcing, chasing, or clinging? In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore a powerful truth. When you stop caring in the anxious, controlling way, everything finally begins to fall into place. This isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of attachment and allowing the universe to flow through you. True peace doesn't come from control, but from surrender. As you listen, reflect on your own life. What are you holding too tightly? Comment below and share your experience. What happened when you finally stopped caring and chose trust instead? 1. The trap of external validation. Most people spend their entire lives unconsciously trying to earn approval, chasing after validation like it's a form of currency. They adjust their personalities, dim their light, and suppress their needs, not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned to believe that their worth depends on how well they fit into the mold others have built for them. They don't realize they've built their identity on fragile foundations: likes, applause, compliments, and acceptance. Over time, the cost becomes clear stress, anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. Carl Jung warned us about the danger of living through the lens of others. He called it the persona of a mask we wear to survive socially, but one that slowly kills the soul. When you become too focused on how you're perceived, you begin to lose touch with who you really are. You start making decisions not from intuition, but from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. And the more you try to please everyone, the more you betray yourself. In today's world, it's even easier to get trapped. Social media fuels comparison. Every post is curated, every smile rehearsed. You begin to believe that your life must look perfect too. But what if letting go of that illusion is the real breakthrough? What if, instead of obsessing over what people think, you began to ask yourself, what do I think? What do I want? What feels right for me, regardless of anyone's opinion? There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop caring about being liked. You stop shrinking. You stop editing your truth. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You begin to live in alignment with your own values, not someone else's checklist. You choose peace over performance. You honor your energy. You set boundaries not to push people away, but to protect the parts of you that matter most. Carl Jung believed that true wholeness comes from individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of yourself, especially the parts you've hidden, to stay accepted. This means embracing both your light and your shadow. It means refusing to let your worth be defined by applause, and instead recognizing that your value is inherent. You don't need permission to be who you are. When you let go of external validation, life becomes lighter. You no longer chase people who don't see your worth. You no longer stay in places that drain your soul. You begin attracting what resonates with your truth, not your mask. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become deeper. And most importantly, you begin to feel free. You don't need to fight for space in rooms where your presence is questioned. You don't need to beg for attention, love, or understanding. When you stop performing and start living from your core, you'll realize that the only approval you ever needed was your own. That's when everything starts to fall into place, not because you controlled it all, but because you surrendered what was never yours to carry. Have you ever caught yourself living for others' approval? If so, share your story in the comments so others can learn and feel less alone. If not, comment, "I choose freedom to take the first step toward living for yourself." 2. What not caring really means. Letting go doesn't mean you no longer care. It doesn't mean you become indifferent, lazy, or emotionally numb. Real letting go means you stop gripping so tightly to what you were never meant to control. You stop chasing approval. You stop shaping yourself to fit someone else's mold. It's not apathy, it's freedom. It's choosing inner peace over performance, presence over perfection. That's the kind of spiritual wisdom most people never get to experience because they're too busy trying to be what others expect. You've probably spent years, maybe decades, trying to manage every detail of your life, fix every crack before someone sees it. You micromanage conversations, obsess over outcomes, analyze every word you say or text you send. And what has it brought you? More stress, more confusion, more disconnection from who you really are. Letting go means realizing you can't force anything into alignment. It means you finally trust that if something is meant for you, you won't have to beg for it, cling to it, or sacrifice your truth to keep it. People-pleasing is one of the deepest wounds we carry. Somewhere along the way, we learned that being loved meant being likable, agreeable, convenient. So we started to abandon ourselves, smiling when we were dying inside, saying yes when our soul was screaming no. But the moment you stop caring about being liked by everyone is the moment you begin to attract the ones who truly see you. Not for the mask, not for the act, but for your essence. And that's where real connection lives. You don't need to be everything for everyone. You only need to be fully yourself. Rejection used to feel like death, like proof that you weren't enough. But now, you understand something deeper. Rejection isn't the enemy. It's divine redirection. It's life saying, not here, not this. There's something better. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that when someone walks away, they're making space for something more aligned. You no longer crumble when someone doesn't choose you because you've already chosen yourself. You no longer shrink when others misunderstand you because clarity lives within you now. And that's the point. You begin to live on your own terms. Not from ego, but from alignment. You no longer build your life around expectations that don't resonate. You stop measuring success by applause and start measuring it by peace. You wake up in the morning and ask your soul, not society, what matters most today. And for once, your actions feel true, not performative. There's no longer a war between who you are and who you pretend to be. When you stop caring about controlling every little thing, something miraculous happens. You arrive fully in the present. You're not trapped in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears. You begin to see the beauty that was always around you, the breeze, the silence, the breath that never left. You start to feel, again, not the chaos, but the calm beneath it. That calm becomes your compass. That stillness becomes your strength. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What does letting go mean to you? Let's keep growing together. 3. Power of detachment and authenticity. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you unlock a quiet, undeniable power. No longer chasing approval, you begin to embody a presence that is grounded, calm, and magnetic. People are drawn not to the noise, but to the stillness, to someone who is fully at home within themselves. Every time you try to perform for love or acceptance, you hand your power away. But when you let go of needing to be liked, needing to impress, needing to be understood, you reclaim your energy. You become the source of your own validation, and that self-trust radiates in ways words never could. The pressure to fit in, to be liked, to say the right thing at the right time, it all dissolves when you realize that none of it defines your worth. Authenticity is not about being loud or rebellious. It's about being real. And realness resonates. It speaks directly to the soul of others. When someone is unapologetically themselves, it reminds people of their own forgotten truth. That's why authenticity is magnetic. It doesn't demand attention. It naturally attracts it. You stop chasing love, and instead, you become love. You stop chasing peace, and you realize you are peace when you are not pretending. This is the essence of a spiritual awakening. It's the moment you wake up and realize that the identity you've carried, crafted through years of expectations, roles, and masks, was never who you really were. You begin to ask different questions. Not, what do they want from me? But what do I want from life? Not, how do I impress them? But what is true for me? These are the turning points where everything begins to shift. You lose interest in superficial approval because it never fed your soul. Instead, you become more interested in alignment, in integrity, in peace that doesn't come from the outside. People feel it when you're aligned. They feel your calm. They feel your confidence. And they want to be near it, not because you're trying to convince them of anything, but because you've stopped trying altogether. That kind of detachment is powerful. It's not cold, it's clear. When you no longer need something from others, you can connect with them more honestly. There's no agenda, no tension, just truth. This is how genuine relationships begin to form, not from proving your worth, but from simply being it. Your energy becomes your voice, and it says, I know who I am. And in a world full of noise and imitation, that clarity is rare. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to defend it. You just live it. And as you do, the people meant for you find you not because you chase them, but because you created space by being real. Let that sink in. You don't attract by performing. You attract by existing in your truth. This is what spiritual awakening brings. A deep sense of inner authority. A peaceful knowing that nothing outside of you can define your value. You stop shrinking. You stop pleasing. You stop chasing. And everything begins to flow, not because you forced it, but because you finally aligned with what was always meant for you. Do you feel the power of letting go and being your true self? If you do, declare it in the comments. I am powerful when I'm authentic. 4. Inner peace through surrender. Letting go isn't weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. The moment you stop trying to control every detail, something powerful shifts. Life, which once felt like a series of obstacles to overcome, suddenly becomes a flow you can move with. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And that resistance often comes from fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. But control is just a mask we wear to protect ourselves from these deeper fears. And the truth is, the more you try to fix, the more tangled things become. When you obsess over your problems, you give them energy. You overthink, overanalyze, and drain yourself trying to solve what might not even need solving. But when you let go, when you stop holding on so tightly, clarity begins to rise. It's in the stillness that the answers come, not through force, but through surrender. Life starts to arrange itself in ways you couldn't have planned. The chaos settles, the anxiety softens, the path becomes clear. Consider this. A woman named Lily once spent her entire life micromanaging everything: her job, her relationships, even her emotions. She had a plan for every scenario, a backup for every plan, and yet peace always felt out of reach. Then came an unexpected illness that left her unable to keep up her routines. She couldn't work, couldn't fix, couldn't control. And it was in that forced stillness that something awakened. She stopped fighting. She stopped planning. And slowly, her mind quieted. Her heart opened. People she hadn't heard from in years reached out with support. Opportunities she'd never expected showed up at her door. For the first time, life met her, not because she chased it, but because she allowed it. That's the paradox Carl Jung understood so deeply. Real strength emerges not through domination, but through integration. When we stop chasing outcomes and instead align with our inner truth, we become whole. This is spiritual wisdom. To know when to act and when to release. To understand that not everything is meant to be fixed. And that peace doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from trusting it. Surrender is not about passivity. It's about clarity. When you let go of what's not yours to carry, your energy returns to you. You stop leaking power through worry and start standing rooted in presence. You learn to respond instead of react, to listen instead of force. And slowly, things begin to fall into place, not because you demanded it, but because you made space for it. This is the beauty of letting go. You no longer live in fear of what might happen, because you've built a life around what truly matters. You stop performing for love, stop begging for attention, and begin living from your soul. The moment you release control, you reclaim your peace. That's when life truly begins to respond with grace, with alignment, with unexpected blessings that come not through struggle, but through surrender. If you're ready to stop forcing and start flowing, comment below. I surrender and trust the path. Let your peace begin here. 6. Relationships improve when you let go. Trying to change others, even when we believe it's for their own good, is often rooted in our own discomfort with the unknown. We think if we could just adjust their behavior, then everything would feel safe, predictable, and secure. But what this does is place pressure on relationships that slowly pushes people away. Carl Jung reminds us that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. In truth, our urge to control is often a reflection of our inner unrest, not a solution to relational problems. When we become aware of this, something profound happens. We stop needing others to act a certain way for us to feel okay. As soon as you stop seeking validation in your relationships, they begin to deepen naturally. The constant need for reassurance fades, and with it goes the anxiety that once ruled your heart. When you no longer crave approval to feel seen or loved, you reclaim your power. You become emotionally self-sufficient, and in that strength, your presence becomes calm, grounded, and magnetic. Instead of clinging or chasing, you allow. You begin to witness others more clearly without projecting your fears onto them, and as a result, your connections grow in authenticity. Detachment, in this context, doesn't mean coldness or withdrawal. It means loving with open hands instead of clenched fists. It means being present without needing to control outcomes. True detachment creates space for respect, space for growth, space for love to breathe. It's not about walking away from people. It's about walking away from the illusion that your peace depends on their behavior. This inner shift is a sign of spiritual awakening. You start to choose peace over performance, freedom over fear, alignment over approval. You stop trying to prove your worth and begin to embody it. And ironically, when you let go of trying to make someone love you a certain way, that's often when love finds its way in. When you let go of the desperate energy of attachment, you invite admiration instead of resistance. People sense your calm, and they're drawn to it. Your ability to be whole with or without them becomes a silent invitation for deeper connection. That's the power of spiritual wisdom. It shows us that real love flows best in the absence of control. It teaches us that when we stop caring in the anxious, overbearing way, everything that's meant for us begins to fall into place, quietly, gently, and without force. If this message has touched your heart, comment below. I trust that love flows freely when I let go. I choose peace over control. Let's grow together in deeper, freer connections. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spiritual wisdom. 5. Social conditioning and the illusion of control. Society conditions us to believe that control equals safety. From a young age, we're taught to plan ahead, stay in control, and prepare for every possible outcome as if uncertainty is a flaw to be corrected. But that belief only deepens our anxiety. Life is not a machine that yields predictable results. The harder we try to control it, the more we suffer when it doesn't obey our expectations. No amount of planning can erase the unknown. In truth, control is not safety. It's a cage that keeps us disconnected from the present moment. Spiritual wisdom teaches that peace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. The illusion of control creates an exhausting way of living. You anticipate problems before they arrive. You measure your worth by your ability to manage everything and everyone. And when things inevitably fall apart, as they always do, you blame yourself, thinking you didn't try hard enough. But the real issue isn't your effort. It's the belief that you're supposed to master life like a game. Life isn't meant to be mastered. It's meant to be experienced with presence, openness, and trust in the unseen rhythms that guide your journey. When you stop caring about controlling every outcome, you return to yourself. You begin to realize that not every question needs an answer right away, and not every situation needs to be fixed. This doesn't mean you give up. It means you stop forcing. Like a tree that bends with the wind instead of snapping in the storm, you learn to move with life rather than against it. True peace isn't found in resistance, but in flow. The more you let go, the more space you create for clarity, healing, and unexpected blessings. In modern life, this truth plays out in the simplest ways. Imagine someone anxiously waiting for a message, a response from a job interview, a text from someone they love. They check their phone every few minutes, unable to focus, trapped by the desire for certainty. But the moment they stop checking, breathe, and return to the present, go outside, read a book, laugh with a friend, something shifts. Even if the message hasn't arrived, their energy has changed. They've reclaimed their power by detaching from the outcome. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that what we let go of often returns transformed or is replaced with something better. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." That's the danger of clinging. What we try to control begins to control us. But when we release that grip, we reconnect with a deeper intelligence within ourselves. We move from fear to trust, from anxiety to alignment. And ironically, life tends to flow better when we stop trying to force it. Opportunities arise, relationships improve, answers reveal themselves, not because we demanded them, but because we made room for them to arrive. Letting go isn't a weakness, it's wisdom. If you're ready to break free from the illusion of control and embrace true inner peace, make sure to subscribe for more spiritual insights that help you see through the noise of conditioning. 7. Living with purpose and lightness. When you stop caring about things that drain your soul, everything begins to shift. The pressure to meet others' expectations fades. The noise of comparison grows quieter. And in that silence, you begin to hear yourself. As Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." The moment you stop giving energy to what doesn't matter, you finally have energy for what does. Your values, your purpose, your peace. Caring less doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming selective. It means choosing to protect your time, your emotions, and your truth. You start asking better questions. Does this align with who I truly am? Is this worth my energy? And when the answer is no, you let it go without guilt. Life begins to feel lighter, not because it's suddenly easier, but because you're no longer carrying what isn't yours to carry. Letting go of what's unnecessary creates space for what's meaningful. The more you detach from the need to be liked, the more you attract what's real. You stop bending for acceptance and begin standing in your own presence. This is where spiritual awakening begins, not in doing more, but in releasing more. You start to see that your imperfections aren't flaws. They are signatures of your uniqueness. You realize that failure isn't the end. It's the beginning of your truth. There was a woman who spent over a decade chasing titles and validation in the corporate world. Her days were full of strategy meetings, her nights filled with silent panic attacks. She thought this was success until the weight of constant performance broke her spirit. One evening, she paused long enough to notice a sunset, and something in her cracked open. It wasn't a burnout, it was awakening. Within months, she quit her job, started healing, and created a life of depth and meaning. She didn't lose everything. She found herself. And it all began the moment she stopped caring about what never truly mattered. Carl Jung believed that the path to individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to detach from the false self we've built for approval. The false self craves control, applause, and perfection. But the true self seeks meaning, connection, and freedom. When you let go of the need to perform, you begin to live. You don't have to prove your worth. You just have to remember it. You learn to say no without explaining. You rest without guilt. You create without seeking applause. You love without needing to be chosen back. Because real freedom comes not when everything is perfect, but when you are no longer imprisoned by fear. And in that freedom, something beautiful happens. Your life aligns, naturally and effortlessly. You attract peace. You radiate purpose. You become whole. To affirm your dedication to living with purpose and lightness, comment below. I release what doesn't matter and make space for what truly does. Let your words inspire others to live with clarity, peace, and meaning. Thank you for watching this video on when you stop caring, everything falls into place. Sometimes, letting go of control is the most powerful way to regain peace. When you stop chasing, forcing, or trying to please everyone, life begins to align in surprising and beautiful ways. Trust that the universe responds to inner stillness, not desperation. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos on personal growth, energy, and deep spiritual insight. Let go and watch your life unfold exactly as it's meant to. The psychological secret that makes a man love you after you hurt his ego. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom. In today's video, we're diving deep into one of the most surprising truths of male psychology. How wounding a man's ego, when understood through a spiritual and psychological lens, can actually spark a deeper emotional bond. This isn't about playing games or manipulation. It's about awakening his inner drive to grow, prove himself, and reconnect through love. As you listen, consider how these powerful insights could transform the way you approach your relationships. Have you ever experienced a shift in someone's feelings after a moment of conflict or distance? Comment below and share your story as we grow through each other's wisdom. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another moment of transformation. 1. The hidden truth about the male psyche. When you chase a man, something subtle but powerful happens. You shift the dynamic and not in your favor. It's not just that he begins to lose interest. It's deeper than that. You unintentionally trigger something in him that makes him perceive your love not as a gift, but as a plea. And the male psyche, rooted in ancient instincts, does not respond well to being pursued. Carl Jung's teachings on the unconscious reveal that men carry deep archetypal patterns, one of which is the need to feel like a protector, not a possession. When that is flipped, when he becomes the one being pursued, something essential in his sense of masculine identity starts to erode. The male ego is fragile, yet it's also where his strength is stored. It thrives on feeling respected, needed, admired. And when you hurt his ego intentionally or not, you wound that core sense of self. His immediate reaction is withdrawal. He may seem cold, distant, or indifferent, but deep down, something is stirring. According to Jung, this is when the man's shadow self is activated, the part of him that holds unresolved fears, insecurities, and unmet needs. And here's the secret few women know. If you respond to his silence with dignity, not desperation, you awaken a deep emotional current inside him. It's not about ignoring him or playing games. It's about standing still with your head held high, signaling that you understand his pain, but will not abandon your own self-worth to soothe it. This response confuses his ego, but intrigues his soul. Because now, instead of feeling pursued, he feels drawn. He begins to question his reaction. He starts to remember your essence, not the conflict, but your presence. Not your words, but your energy. And slowly, what was once a wall becomes a mirror. He sees himself in how you handled the break. This shift can be profound. A man will rarely confess it, but what touches him most is when a woman does not try to fix his pain, but instead remains rooted in her light while he finds his way. There is something unforgettable about that kind of power. It speaks to a part of him that goes beyond attraction. It speaks to reverence. A man will chase countless women, but he will never forget the one who knew how to hold her center when his world fell apart. A modern woman named Elise once told the story of how she hurt the man she loved during an argument. Her instinct was to apologize repeatedly, to call, to explain. But instead, she chose stillness. She let him go, not with bitterness, but with grace. And in doing so, she allowed him to process, to confront himself, and eventually to return, not because she begged, but because her silence reminded him of who he was before the wound. That's the difference. It's not about controlling him. It's about becoming a reflection of the strength he forgot he had. Carl Jung believed relationships are catalysts for individuation, the process of becoming whole. When you hurt a man's ego, you don't destroy the relationship. You begin a psychological dance that can either break both of you or awaken both of you. The outcome depends on whether you choose panic or power, reactivity or reflection. The space you create in your silence can become the very field where love matures. And if he grows from it, he won't just love you again. He'll love you deeper, not because you healed him, but because you never left yourself behind. Have you ever noticed how chasing a man made him pull away? If so, share your story in the comments. Your insight might help someone else. If not, comment, "I'll observe," to join this journey of understanding the hidden truth about the male psyche together. 2. Carl Jung's insights on the male ego. Carl Jung believed that within every man lies a primordial wound, a deep, unconscious need to prove his worth. This isn't just about proving himself to the world, but to himself, to the woman he loves, and to the invisible expectations passed down from generations of silent fathers and broken pride. This inner wound is not weakness. It is the origin of his desire to become more capable, more powerful, more worthy. And when a woman touches that wound, especially after hurting his ego, something ancient awakens in him. Not all women can trigger this transformation. Only the one who stands firmly in her truth, who doesn't bend to please or soothe what isn't hers to fix, can spark this fire. When she withdraws her energy, not as punishment, but as a form of self-respect, he feels the sting. But that sting does not always drive him away. It calls him to rise. That sting reminds him that he is not entitled to love. He must earn it, protect it, and grow to meet it. Attraction, at that point, is no longer casual. It becomes compulsive. He thinks about her when he wakes. He replays their conversations. He wonders how he lost her attention, her warmth, her softness. And then the realization hits him. She didn't abandon him. She reflected him. Her withdrawal wasn't rejection. It was revelation. The mirror she held up to him showed him the gap between the man he is and the man he knows he could be. That gap burns. But in that fire, something sacred is forged. This isn't manipulation. This is spiritual wisdom. A woman who holds her power gently but firmly does not just attract a man's body. She pulls his soul forward. She becomes a catalyst for his individuation, the very process Jung described as the integration of the self. She doesn't need to beg for love or chase validation. She simply becomes the invitation for him to evolve. Some men, when faced with this rupture, shut down and run. But others feel the call of something deeper than desire. They feel destiny, and they come back, not just with apologies, but with change. Not because she demanded it, but because her silence spoke louder than any words. Because her presence, now absent, haunted his soul in ways he couldn't explain. Her respect for herself made him respect what he lost. And that, more than anything, inspired his transformation. In truth, the moment his ego is hurt is the moment of decision. Will he harden, or will he grow? Will he retreat into pride, or will he rise into purpose? It is in that fragile, powerful moment that love becomes real, not as comfort, but as alchemy. Her refusal to carry his emotional immaturity becomes the very force that awakens his masculinity. Not the false kind built on dominance, but the true kind rooted in courage, humility, and emotional depth. What she ignites in him is not just attraction, it is initiation. She activates the part of him that has been waiting for a reason to rise. And sometimes, it takes the echo of her absence to awaken the full weight of her worth in his life. Do you feel the truth in this? If it resonates, declare it in the comments. His soul awakens when I see his wound with love. 3. Why most women fail. Many women make the common mistake of giving everything they have, love, time, and unwavering devotion, only to find themselves receiving very little in return. This pattern often leaves them feeling exhausted and undervalued. It's important to understand that love is not a transaction of endless giving without balance. There is a deeper psychological dynamic at play that shapes how men experience attraction and affection. Carl Jung's insights into the masculine psyche reveal a fundamental truth. Men tend to value what they have to work for. This is not a matter of manipulation or gamesmanship, but a reflection of an inherent psychological drive. Men are wired to appreciate challenge and effort. When something comes too easily, it can lose its significance in their eyes. As Jung said, where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. This highlights the delicate balance between love and the natural masculine need to prove worth. Modern neuroscience backs this understanding by showing that a man's brain releases motivation and reward chemicals like dopamine when he pursues and earns emotional connection. When love is freely given without invitation or challenge, the brain does not register it as valuable or meaningful. This explains why men often pull away when they feel that emotional intimacy is handed to them without any effort. Historical examples illustrate this truth in living color. Magnetic women, such as Cleopatra and Marilyn Monroe, embodied a captivating balance of mystery, self-respect, and allure. They understood the power of holding space, of not overextending themselves, and of inviting men into the dance of pursuit. Their power was rooted not merely in their beauty, but in their spiritual awakening to their own worth and sovereignty. For you, this means that true attraction begins with a deep respect and honor for your own inner world. On your path of spiritual awakening, the way to draw a man's genuine love is not by giving endlessly, but by cultivating your own wholeness and presence. When you embody self-worth and live from a place of centeredness and joy, your energy naturally becomes magnetic. It sends a clear message: I am complete and worthy, and I will not settle for less. This shift in mindset and energy is the key to transforming your relationships. Instead of trying harder, being more available, or chasing love, focus inward. Become the most authentic and spiritually awakened version of yourself. When you do, the right man will be drawn to you, not by force or neediness, but by resonance. As the saying goes, when you know your worth, you stop giving people discounts. Understanding this is not about playing hard to get or pretending to be someone else. It is about emotional intelligence and spiritual wisdom, recognizing the laws that govern attraction and honoring the sacred dance of relationship. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your full self, is the foundation for meaningful connection. The man who truly belongs in your life will meet you in that space of authenticity and self-possession. By awakening to your own power and value, you shift the entire dynamic. You no longer seek validation through giving love away freely, but rather, you embody love as your natural state. This is the essence of spiritual awakening in relationships, loving yourself so fully that you invite the right love to meet you there. Stay connected with our spiritual wisdom community by subscribing to the channel. Here, we uncover the truth behind relationships, self-worth, and feminine power, guided by both ancient wisdom and modern psychology. Remember, you are not meant to chase love. You are meant to radiate it. You are worthy of effort, devotion, and honor. 4. The 3 secrets to affecting the male ego. The first secret to truly influencing a man's ego lies in becoming his soul mirror. This means seeing beyond who he is in the present moment and recognizing the vast potential that resides within him. When you lovingly challenge him to step into his best self, you create a subtle psychological tension that motivates him deeply. It's not about pressuring or demanding change, but about reflecting his hidden strengths and possibilities with genuine belief. Carl Jung's insights show us that people are drawn to what awakens their unconscious desires. So by embodying this mirror, you spark in him a drive to grow and to earn your admiration. For instance, instead of focusing on his current flaws or limitations, you gently encourage his dreams and talents, inspiring an inner transformation that fuels his attachment to you. The second secret is the paradox of presence, which defies the common notion that constant attention keeps a man close. Instead, being like the moon, always present but also mysterious, creates a powerful attraction. When your availability is intermittent, it triggers increased dopamine release in his brain, making your attention feel more rewarding and compelling than if you were always immediately accessible. Living a full, independent life that he wants to be invited into, rather than one revolving solely around him, makes you far more desirable. Take, for example, a woman who pursues her passions, friendships, and career with confidence without rushing to reply to every message. This distance, balanced with genuine presence, draws him in naturally, sparking his curiosity and deepening his interest. The third secret involves confronting the shadow of those hidden insecurities and fears that every man carries but rarely shows. Carl Jung described this shadow as a core part of our psyche, filled with vulnerability and fear of rejection or inadequacy. To bridge this divide, you must first be willing to show your own vulnerability, creating a safe emotional environment. When he senses this openness, he feels secure enough to reveal his own hidden struggles. But crucially, when he opens up, avoid rushing to rescue or fix him. Instead, reflect his courage back to him, acknowledging his bravery in being vulnerable. This mutual vulnerability leads to the release of oxytocin, a powerful hormone that strengthens emotional bonding and trust. This process forms a deep connection far beyond surface attraction, fostering intimacy grounded in authenticity. Together, these 3 secrets, the soul mirror, the paradox of presence, and confronting the shadow, form a powerful framework for awakening a man's love even after his ego has been hurt. They are not about manipulation or control, but about inspiring growth, maintaining healthy boundaries, and nurturing emotional safety. Through these principles, grounded in Carl Jung's psychological wisdom, you invite a deeper spiritual awakening in your relationship, allowing both partners to evolve and connect on a profound level. If you're ready to understand the deeper layers of the male ego, and build magnetic, lasting connections, comment below. I reflect his soul, not his shadow. 5. The science behind it. Neuroscience confirms that dopamine, the brain chemical responsible for pleasure and desire, increases when a man encounters challenge and mystery. When a woman withdraws emotionally or challenges him in a way that disrupts his ego, his system doesn't shut down. It wakes up. His brain interprets this tension not as rejection, but as an opportunity. The mystery stirs his curiosity, the uncertainty stimulates pursuit, and the chase reawakens his desire. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that contrast is necessary for clarity, and in the space where certainty is shaken, a man begins to question what and who matters most. As this dynamic unfolds, vasopressin enters the picture. Known as the bonding hormone in men, vasopressin is released when a man feels compelled to rise to a challenge. But not just any challenge, the kind that makes him feel more like a man, not less. When a woman triggers his ego, but does not belittle his essence, she becomes a mirror reflecting his untapped potential. This ignites his instinct to protect, to commit, to connect. The very wound to his ego becomes the reason he wants to prove himself, not just to her, but to himself. The pain, rather than pushing him away, awakens in him the impulse to draw nearer, to anchor deeper. In that moment, bonding is no longer about comfort, it's about becoming. Then, in the softer stages of reconciliation, oxytocin begins its work. This hormone, often called the love molecule, flows when emotional intimacy and vulnerability are shared. After the storm has passed, when she creates a space where his defenses are no longer needed, he feels safe enough to let his armor fall. And in that safety, something sacred happens. He stops projecting his idealized image of her and begins seeing the real woman before him. Simultaneously, he begins to see himself more clearly. This is the essence of Carl Jung's teaching. The anima, the inner feminine in a man, is not found in a perfect woman, but in the woman who challenges him to awaken. The disruption she brings shakes the projection, and in its place, a real connection begins to grow. What seems like a rupture becomes a rite of passage. His ego was not destroyed, it was transformed. He no longer loves from fantasy, but from presence. And what draws him back is not only desire, but recognition. He sees in her the catalyst of his own growth, the silent architect of his emotional depth. It is not the woman who always agrees, pleases, or appeases that bonds him. It is the woman who stands firm in her truth while offering a safe space for him to evolve. The cycle of challenge and comfort, distance and closeness, ego and essence becomes a spiritual dance, not a manipulation of hormones, but a map of human transformation. In this dance, spiritual wisdom reveals its power. Love is not just a feeling, it is an alchemical fire. It burns away illusion, awakens memory, and purifies intention. A man falls in love, not because a woman never hurt him, but because the pain she caused led him back to something real, a part of himself he forgot, and a kind of love he never knew he needed. If this science opened your eyes, don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on how brain chemistry shapes love, bonding, and attraction. Tap the bell so you never miss a breakthrough. 6. Applying this in real life. Start with yourself. Honor your potential, your shadow, and your mystery. Your potential is not just about what you do. It's the silent power in how you hold yourself when no one is watching. Your shadow, though often misunderstood, carries the raw, unpolished truth of who you are, your desires, your instincts, your fire. And your mystery? That's the part of you that doesn't need to explain, impress, or perform. It's the quiet strength of knowing that not everything about you is meant to be understood. Some parts are meant to be felt. When you begin to move from this place of self-honor, everything shifts. You no longer feel the urge to respond immediately, to explain yourself, to overextend. You realize that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves instant access to it. So, you pause, not to punish him, but to protect your peace. And in that silence, something powerful happens. He starts to wonder, not out of confusion, but curiosity. Because mystery sparks desire, and desire invites him back to his own emotional edge. As you grow into this new self, you begin to keep parts of your life sacred. You no longer broadcast every emotion or detail of your day. Not out of secrecy, but sovereignty. You don't need the world to validate what you're living. You are living it for yourself. And in doing so, you become less predictable, more rooted, and infinitely more magnetic. A man who once took your presence for granted now finds himself drawn back in, not by your words, but by the silence that now speaks louder than ever. You also begin to challenge him, not with pressure, but with presence. When you look at him, not as a project to fix, but as a soul capable of greatness, you awaken something ancient in him. He feels seen without being judged, encouraged without being controlled. This is the difference between a woman who needs love and a woman who embodies it. The first demands, the second inspires. And the man who once recoiled from your intensity now feels summoned by the warmth of your gaze, the steadiness of your energy, the quiet invitation to rise. All of this is only possible when you lead from subtlety and authenticity, not performance or manipulation. True spiritual awakening begins when you no longer feel the need to bend yourself into someone else's expectations. Instead, you become honest, not harsh, but real. You speak with softness and walk with clarity. You let your presence do the speaking, and it speaks of depth, grace, and unapologetic self-worth. In this space, you no longer chase him, heal him, or convince him. You create a field where the right man naturally returns not to who you were, but to who you've become. And perhaps more importantly, to who he wants to become beside you. Leave a like if this message resonated with you. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that supports your inner growth and self-mastery. If you're ready to apply this wisdom in your own life, comment below. I honor my truth and my transformation. 7. Real-life examples. Mariana was once deeply invested in a man who barely acknowledged her presence. She poured her heart into the relationship, hoping that more love would earn his attention. But everything shifted when she stopped trying to prove herself. Instead of reacting emotionally, she practiced emotional neutrality, held her energetic boundaries, and embodied silent confidence. Without a single dramatic conversation, he began to turn toward her, not away. His energy softened, his attention deepened. She had unknowingly touched something inside him far beyond ego, his need to feel safe in her presence, not judged. And that was the moment his love truly began. Louisa, on the other hand, believed that honesty meant saying everything she felt at all times. She overshared every emotion, every worry, every minor shift in the relationship, thinking it made her open and real. But her constant need to be understood robbed the relationship of mystery. It left no space for pursuit. When she chose to reclaim her privacy, to hold back just enough for him to feel her depth without grasping all of it, everything changed. As Carl Jung once wrote, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Her silence created tension, not fear, but fascination. He leaned in, not because she demanded it, but because she became unknowable in a way that magnetized his masculine instinct to explore. Teresa loved a man terrified of commitment. For years, she tried convincing him that she was the right one. She overcompensated, gave him time, patience, endless reassurance, but it only fed his fear. One day, she stopped arguing and began healing herself. She acknowledged his wounds without carrying them. She named the cycles they repeated not with blame, but clarity. And something softened in him. For the first time, he didn't feel pushed. He felt witnessed. Slowly, he opened up, faced his fears, and chose her without being chased, coerced, or convinced. Katerina spent years dimming her own light, believing that being too successful, too passionate, too bold would intimidate men. She shrank to fit their comfort, made herself smaller to be more acceptable. But it only attracted men who wanted control, not partnership. The moment she stopped apologizing for her power, she attracted a different kind of man, a man who saw her ambition as beautiful, her voice as strength, and her fullness as freedom. Her spiritual awakening was not loud, it was inward. She stopped asking, "How do I make someone love me?" and started asking, "How do I love myself enough to stop performing?" Carl Jung's work revealed that every man has a hidden wound, the part of his ego that fears failure, rejection, or insignificance. When a woman tries to soothe that wound through pleasing or over-explaining, she often reinforces his fear. But when she mirrors wholeness by standing in her truth, honoring herself, and creating emotional space, she awakens his desire to rise, not retreat. Because men do not fall in love with women who explain themselves. They fall in love with women who embody emotional clarity. They don't stay for comfort alone. They stay for the spiritual awakening that presence inspires. These stories are not fantasies. They are proof that true love doesn't begin with control or ego. It begins the moment you stop begging for love and start becoming love itself. 8. Empowering message for women. Stop dimming your light to make a man feel secure. When you suppress your truth, hide your intelligence, or soften your brilliance just to avoid wounding his ego, you are not being loving. You are abandoning yourself. Men do not fall in love with women who become invisible. They fall in love with women who are fully alive. A man may be intrigued by beauty, but what makes him stay is the undeniable presence of a woman who has claimed her power, who radiates emotional depth, intuitive fire, and spiritual wisdom. She doesn't shrink to soothe his insecurities. She challenges him to rise. When a woman owns her truth, something shifts biologically, emotionally, spiritually. There's a magnetism in her presence that cannot be explained but only felt. This is not about dominance. It's about resonance. A woman in alignment with her soul becomes irresistible not because she performs, but because she simply is. Her energy speaks louder than words. Her silence is not empty, it's sacred. And when she looks at a man, she doesn't seek permission. She sees his potential, even when he's forgotten it himself. Carl Jung said that every man carries within him the eternal image of woman, not the image he sees in front of him, but the one he holds within his unconscious. When a woman dares to be her true self, she awakens that archetype within him. But that awakening can be terrifying. It stirs his shadows. It threatens the ego he's built on control, approval, and predictability. If his self-worth is fragile, he may retreat. He may lash out. He may blame you for his discomfort, when in truth, you've simply revealed how disconnected he is from his own soul. But that is not your burden to carry. You were not born to manage his fears. You were born to embody the sacred dance of power and softness, of chaos and order, of wildness and wisdom. Spiritual awakening isn't about becoming palatable. It's about becoming whole. A whole woman doesn't water herself down to be digested by someone who isn't hungry for the truth. She speaks it, she walks it, she becomes it. And when she does, she doesn't just attract love, she awakens it in others. So if your fire once burned too bright for someone, let it be. If your honesty shattered a fragile illusion, let it break. You are not too much. You are the exact medicine a conscious man has prayed for. And he will not be threatened by your power. He will be called into his. If this message has awakened something deep within you, declare it in the comments. I will no longer dim my light. I was born to shine. And if you felt empowered by this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of inspiration. 9. The true purpose of this knowledge. This knowledge was never meant to be used as a weapon of control. It was meant to heal, to reveal, to help both you and the man you love become whole. The essence of spiritual awakening lies in this recognition. True love does not complete us. It reflects us. It does not ask for perfection, but presence. Carl Jung taught that real love happens when two whole individuals meet, not to fill a void, but to honor the fullness already within. It's a sacred mirror, not a missing puzzle piece. When a man's ego is hurt, he doesn't see clearly. He sees threat where there is none, rejection where there is reflection. The natural instinct might be to fix it, explain it, soften it, but that only deepens the illusion that love must be earned. Instead, when you've done your inner work and stood firmly in your emotional maturity, you don't react. You radiate. You give him space, not silence. You offer presence, not pressure. And in that space, he begins to see you not as a source of pain, but as a source of transformation. There is deep spiritual wisdom in how you respond to his wounded masculine. When you hold your center, instead of collapsing into guilt or fear, he senses something different, something rare. You don't diminish yourself to protect his pride. You don't shrink your truth to soothe his insecurity. You stay rooted in self-worth. And from that grounded place, you become a reflection of the man he could be if he too chose to rise. You become a spiritual mirror, not a savior. And that reflection is powerful enough to cut through ego, to call something ancient in him to awaken. This is what the sacred feminine truly is. It is not weakness. It is not compliance. It is a steady flame that burns with compassion and clarity. When met with that energy, the masculine has a choice: defend the ego or surrender to growth. If he chooses growth, he does not love you because you fed his pride. He loves you because you challenged him with grace. You didn't punish his pain. You allowed it to surface without shame. And that kind of love is unforgettable. You are not here to beg for affection or prove your worth. You are here to embody wholeness so fiercely that anyone who comes close is invited to do the same. The moment you stop trying to be chosen and instead choose yourself, everything changes. He feels it. He may not understand it at first, but something in him shifts. You are no longer a character in his emotional drama. You are a mirror of his soul's potential. This is not manipulation. It's alchemy. And it only works when you're honest with yourself, when your actions are aligned with love, not fear. Jung reminds us that what is unconscious will continue to control us until we bring it into the light. So let this be your light, not to dominate a man, but to inspire him, not to bind him, but to awaken him. Because in the end, what he truly falls in love with is not your perfection, but your presence. Not your ability to heal him, but your willingness to heal yourself and remain whole in the face of his brokenness. Remember, love isn't about perfection. It's about understanding the deeper layers of the human psyche. Even when egos are bruised, true connection is still possible when you approach the relationship with wisdom, patience, and emotional awareness. Carl Jung taught us that what is unconscious seeks expression, and sometimes it's through emotional tension that the soul calls for healing and growth. If this video gave you insight into your relationships, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos filled with deep psychological and spiritual insights. Until next time, stay grounded, stay wise, and always choose growth.